Jay Bilas, ESPN college basketball analyst. Good morning, Jay. How are you?
Good morning, Dan. How are you?
I'm spectacular. It's a Meat Friday, by the way. Didn't know if you're celebrating that where you live, but it's a big deal here.
Well, I celebrate everything you celebrate.
Thank you.
You're my beacon there.
Thank you. Am I celebrating the $125,000 contract to the elite high school basketball prospects today?
Yeah, I think it's another option, but I don't think it's necessarily a game changer. There's going to be a lot that's going to be said about it, and I think there's some celebration in the NCAA office because they can now say, "Hey, if you don't like what we're serving, then go somewhere else. You can go into the G League. Nobody's forcing you to go to college." But then when the one and done rule is brought up, then they say, well, we shouldn't have anybody forced to go to college. And so you kind of ask them, well, which is it? But I don't think it's a bad thing to have that option. I just don't think you're going to see some exodus into the G League for $125,000.
How do we decide who's elite for these select contracts for the G League?
That's kind of the problem. I think it'll be the NBA deciding who they want more than anything, but that's an open question and a really good one. And you're having a lot of things converge now after the FBI investigation started right about a year ago, or at least was revealed about a year ago, with all the charges. All of a sudden we had everything turned upside down, and Condoleezza Rice came in with Mark Emmert's commission, and we had all these recommendations. And USA Basketball needs to hold camps, and the shoe companies need to be cordoned off. We'll take their money, but we don't want them, talking to the players, that kind of thing. We're having a lot of barriers being put up right now, and I don't really know how it's going to shake out. But what's clearly happening is they're trying to separate the best players so that the NCAA can continue to blame all their pre-existing problems on one and done. It's really remarkable how we've done this. We've said that the NCAA said, well, people have no interest to go to school by the one and done rule being forced to go to school. And nobody really looks at the other side of it, of saying, well, who's forcing you to take them? Nobody's forcing you to recruit one-and-done players if they're not interested in school. Nobody's forcing you to admit them into school. And nobody's forcing you to give them a uniform if they're not doing their homework and not taking the classes you think they should take. So there's a lot of contradictions and hypocrisy going on here.
But if I looked at last year's talent, Marvin Bagley, does he go to Duke or would he take $125,000? DeAndre Ayton, is he at Arizona? Now Zion Williamson this year. Could you see these kids passing up the opportunity to play on national TV and advance their brand, or would they rather take the 125 and play in relative obscurity?
Probably not. And this is really the issue, Dan. Like the G League is a minor league, and the NCAA likes to say, well, they don't want to be another minor league. Well, they're not a minor league; they're a major league. I mean, minor leagues don't make billions of dollars and don't have multi-billion-dollar TV contracts. So I think the answer is the elite prospects would probably go to college, especially since they're getting paid anyway, a lot of them. So they can do both. I mean, people are. Isn't it amazing? This trial is going on. You've got wiretap evidence that's being laid bare in open court, and nobody cares. Like the fans don't care. Clearly, the NCAA doesn't care. And all these presidents and athletic directors that shake their fists all the time and say integrity, integrity, integrity. Nobody has been put on administrative leave. Nobody has been fired. Nothing's happened. It's just a bunch of people saying, hey, nobody from the federal government has contacted us, and we're really looking forward to a great season. I don't really want to hear lectures from college administrators anymore about what integrity means. It's really laughable.
But you got some names attached to this. Bill Self, his name attached to a $20,000 payment to a recruit. And normally, coach, it never gets to a head coach. It's rare when it gets to a head coach. It's almost like by accident that a head coach is named in something like this. What Zion Williamson's stepdad, allegedly asked for from Kansas. So, where are we going with this investigation? And is anybody going to be put on probation, or is Zion Williamson's eligibility in question? It feels like there's a lot of unanswered questions out there, and I agree with you. I don't know if anybody cares.
They don't. And there are a lot of unanswered questions, a ton of them. And I can tell you one thing, they are not going to be answered this season. Part of it is because the government has asked the NCAA to stand down as far as investigations are concerned, but that doesn't mean individual schools can't investigate their own players. And the truth is, Dan, there's really no way for compliance to get to the bottom of all this stuff. It's got to be the NCAA, and we're never going to get the answers to all this stuff. All the players that are implicated right now are going to be long gone before this is ever settled. And you can say, like, what more would a school need to say, hey, we need to do something than evidence of their coach or of an assistant coach being on a wiretap. And do you need to be like CSI Miami to figure this out? You don't. It's clear not only what the implication is, it's clear what this is. It's res ipsa loquitur. It is what it appears to be. And I'm surprised that we're getting all this nonsense about, well, the federal government's not going to contact people in the middle of a trial. That just doesn't happen. So they're saying, well, we haven't been contacted yet, as if this stuff doesn't matter. It matters according to their rules. And they say the rules are above everything, and they believe in integrity and all this other stuff. And, the G League made an announcement yesterday, and Mark Emmert had a statement out in no time. NCAA coaches are revealed on wiretaps, and it's crickets out of Indianapolis. Yeah. And I find that kind of hard to stomach.
It's Jay Bilas, ESPN college basketball analyst, joining us. I'm just amazed at how much these administrators, educators care about these kids from urban areas. Like, we really, really care about them only for 1 year. Instead of saying, if we really cared, we would let them go right to the pros, and then we wouldn't have this charade with college basketball. But this comes down to, I think, it's just $1 billion business, and we need as many new and shiny toys as possible so March Madness lives up to its billing. I mean, does it come down to just that's the bottom line with a lot of this stuff here, Jay?
I think so, but also, Dan, I think it goes deeper than that. I think the NCAA would really like to see all of the top prospects that are the quote one and dones not come to college at all, so they can wash their hands of the whole thing, and they can say we're about education. Where, in my judgment, if you're really about education, you would welcome everybody to college and try to get them to do both, to pursue their dream to be a professional and to get their education. Yeah. That's what true educators do. But all of this is being done in the name of money. The NCAA will do whatever it takes so they do not have to pay. That's all this is. Every argument is being tailored so they don't have to pay, and none of it makes any sense. And especially, like, Andy Schwartz, is a terrific economist, wrote an amazing article on Deadspin that sort of talked about how the NCAA has been gaslighting all of us for all these years, and they move the goalposts every time they're in court and under oath. And I think it's worth a read to illuminate just how bad these arguments are in favor of amateurism, which amateurism does nothing for any athlete. Doesn't make them a better athlete, doesn't make them a better person, doesn't make them a better student. If we cared about education, we'd be incentivizing players to come to school and stay in school, especially since the overwhelming majority of players in college basketball are African American. I think there's a lot of things that are frankly shameful in the responses we have to this.
Your former coach, Coach K, called the investigation going on just a blip, which I was really surprised that Coach K would call it just a blip. Your reaction to that?
I would differ with him on that. I think it's far more than a blip. This has been going on for a long, long time. I think there's a lot of space between a blip and everybody is doing it. I don't think anybody would argue that every single coach is doing it. But the idea that you have the 30th best player in the country, or 30th ranked player in the country, getting $100,000 to go to Louisville, and nobody else is getting that, and that's just a blip, I think I can't imagine that being true. I think anybody who's been around it would acknowledge that there's been cheating going on forever in basketball and football. I mean, people seem to forget that an agent paid Reggie Bush. And, Cam Newton, there was all kinds of cheating going on in football. I mean, one of the ways that it's being done now is with debit cards with offshore accounts, so they can't be traced. This stuff is really sophisticated. And the government is trying to say that the schools are victims when the schools' coaches in a lot of these instances not only know about it, in certain instances they're in on it. So it's hard to imagine how they could be painted as victims. And it'll be really interesting to see what this jury does with that theory.
Wait, so these kids will get an ATM card, and then they can take out money, and that money is put in offshore, so there's no trail?
Yeah, the offshore accounts. That's what I'm told. I mean, I don't know. I'm not involved in that stuff, but that's what I've been told over the years. Is that's the latest thing that's going on the football side. And look, I mean, Dan, you and I have talked about this before. When we were in school, boosters were the issue.
Yeah.
Money being funneled to players by boosters.
Yeah.
So it's become much more sophisticated now. The NCAA can say, well, we really cleaned up the booster thing. But then they got on the basketball side, the shoe companies and grassroots basketball and all these things, because the high school players and the college players are, to the shoe companies, more valuable than the pros. They move more product than the pros do. And so, and in football, it strains the mind to think that players are being paid in basketball. And the sport that dwarfs it financially, and basketball makes billions, but the sport that dwarfs it, no, everything's clean. The last guy that was caught cheating was Cam Newton and Reggie Bush, and everything else is clean. That's laughable. It's just not true.
Yeah, it's crazy. It really is of what it is and where it's going. And I just wonder, is the clock ticking on the one and done? Is there a time frame, do you think?
Yeah, but it's gonna be in the next collective bargaining agreement. So it'll be 2021 or 2022.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is a nice stopgap, the G League thing. But the truth is, Dan, they're not going to put a limit on it. So they're not going to make you stay in school for 2 or 3 years like they do in football, which is an old vestige. But what will happen is you'll see players reclassifying, like Marvin Bagley III did last year, and leave after 1 year anyway. So we're not going to be able to stop players leaving after 1 year. They'll just have a dozen or so, maybe more, that take off. But then you're going to have others that are going to blossom as freshmen, and they're going to be gone after 1 year too. It's not going to eliminate the problem. It's going to eliminate a few of the players, and that's the thing. It's not problem solving. It's just movement of a few players.
Now, what do you think LeBron would have been worth on the open market? Or
Kobe?
A ton. I mean,
you're talking about like an under the table payment?
Oh yeah.
Oh, a ton. Yeah, but that's the thing, Dan. Like the money's flowing anyway, and we've developed this fiction that we can stop the flow of money in a multi-billion-dollar business. And I always think about that movie Jurassic Park, where the Jeff Goldblum character would say, "Life finds a way," and it's the same thing in this kind of business. Money finds a way. And you've heard my stuff on this. I mean, if this were really amateur, we wouldn't be selling it for billions of dollars. Like, amateur sports don't make billions of dollars and don't pay their coaches millions. This is professional. It's not minor league. It's major league. And the only thing that is not professional about it is the way the players are treated. They don't have the same economic rights as the students they are going to school with, who are allowed scholarships and whatever their talents command in the marketplace. It's really kind of a bizarre system, but the truth is, like we were saying before, the fans don't care. They just want their games. It's like conference realignment. They don't care about how much coaches are paid, conference realignment. They just want their games when they want their games. They want to watch them. They want to bet on them. They want to enjoy them. And they don't really care. Like, I didn't care whether the officials in the NFL got their pensions a few years ago. I just wanted the games. and it's the same thing with college athletes. The fans don't care whether they're paid or not. They just want their games.
Safe travels, Jay. We appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, brother.
All right. That's Jay Bilas. There's a lot of questions with this, and he's right. I don't know if these kids are going to pass up going to Duke or North Carolina or Kansas or, fill in the blank to make $125,000. But if you make $125 and you're like Zion Williamson making $125, and then all of a sudden Adidas or Nike comes in and says, now we can pay you $10 million. Instead of waiting a year to get sponsored, you're going to get money under the table. And these guys do. There's a sophistication, but I think it comes back to the shoe companies. And you're finding that out in this trial. Because if I'm going to give a school, throw out X number of $1 million for you to wear our product, okay? I want the best players wearing my product before they go to the NBA. And if you're on display playing in big games, nationally televised games, and you're a good team, it's just product placement is what this is. And that's what's going on here. Now, do I think it happens everywhere? Just about. Just about. Because there's so much money involved. These coaches have to validate their salaries. The schools want to make the NCAA tournament. The NCAA wants to have a good product for March Madness. The TV executives want to have a good product with March Madness. And it all comes down to the bottom line, and that's $1 multi-billion-dollar industry.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.